Welcome to Sports from the Couch
I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
with your host, Mike Mercado.
Players cannot stand him. Coaches cannot stand him. Most importantly, the fans can't stand him.
Brought to you by Mercado Airwaves.
I'm gonna say it once, and hopefully I'm wrong, but it's a disaster waiting to happen.
That is so bad, that is absolutely brutal.
Hello and welcome in, friends, to another edition of Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. I want to thank you so much for making us a part of your day. And on today's edition of Sports from the Couch, we take a look back at Monday Night Football as the Chicago Bears fall to the Pittsburgh Steelers 29-27, taking their record to 3-6. A lot in this game, from growth of Justin Fields to controversy with a ref, a comeback that could have ended with a wonderful victory, but that is not the case to be, so we're going to break all that and so much more. But before we do that, let's take care of some housekeeping notes. You can follow us all over the universe. I'm on Twitter at MikeAdMedia, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media, and you can be interactive with the show on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. Like, rate, review, share us, leave a comment wherever you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. Check out the video version of the podcast over at YouTube, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. Do us a huge favor, hit that little bell and the subscribe button to be notified every single time we upload a brand new episode. We're also on Roku. Shout out to the one and only Jerry Riles and the Rewind Sports 60. That's Roku at the Rewind Sports 60. If you would like to become a producer of the network, get our confidence picks every week in the NFL, check us out at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. We also have swag at teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves, just in time for the holiday season. We also have a sports show, guys, if you're new to the program or new to the Sports Cubicle, every Sunday night on WCPT, 8:20 a.m. on Chicago Airwaves, and of course on the web at WCPT820.com. We tackle all the major news and notes around the national and local sports perspective. That's the Sports Cubicle. You can see that bad boy right there at the Rewind Sports 60's cousin. From the birth of that came the Sports Cubicle ever at WCPT 820, and we've had a lot of fun doing that, so we'll keep that logo up there as a reminder to check us out every single Sunday. And finally, we want to thank each and every one of you. It's been a crazy month, but the numbers have been great. And before we get onto the show, I just want to thank you guys. So please, if you guys want to support us even more, check out all those outlets. We love you. Thank you guys so much. Let's get right into this craziness, because that's what this was, right? A little transparency. So as I was watching this on Monday night, I was actually watching a lot of Bulls Nets. I think as the first half kept going, it was just a lot of the same nonsense with the Bears. And it wasn't until after the Bulls put away the Nets, and that was a awesome game, by the way, and a lot of hype, deservingly so, to the Chicago Bulls, because they are playing good basketball. They do have their own deficiencies. That's a conversation we're going to have later on in the week, but it was an entertaining game. It was a big matchup, and the Bears game was just not fun. It just wasn't a fun game on both sides, not just both sides of the ball for the Bears and for their offensive defense, but also for both teams. They just didn't look good. But then the second half happened, and you have this comeback. You have this crazy story between Cassius Marsh and Tony Cornetti and Tony Correnti, and it's just, what? Like, okay, let's start off this way. Do I think the referees cost the Bears the game? No, the Bears did. But do I also think that the taunting rule is one of the worst things implemented by the NFL? Absolutely. These are pro athletes. But, what are we doing here? You have no qualms letting them have CTE, sticking needles in them, painkillers, but you're worried about taunting in some of the highest pressure, highest moments in the sport. And not just that, it's subjective. It's a subjective rule. Like if your speed limits, that's an easy rule to follow or to break. You can only drive 35 miles an hour. You can only drive 20 during certain parts of the day. So on and so forth, right? You can't blow past a stop sign because it says stop. Easy rules to enforce, right? But the NFL constantly will take 2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards. And this is one of those moments where there is clear and obvious ways that this is not working and that it is hurting your perception of the game. I think for a long time, a lot of people's biggest complaint about the NFL is that the offense was it was too much offense, not enough defense, and you didn't see the toughness anymore. I don't think that's the case. I think what's happening, and it's something that we're finally starting to really understand, is it's all the flags. It's all the constant stopping in a game, wondering if the play you just saw really happened. How frustrating is that? Whether it's your team, somebody on your fantasy team, or you just enjoying a good game. And let's be honest now, half of the country with gambling, right? It's really important because there's money on the line. How frustrating is it when you think you saw something happen and it didn't happen? It wasn't real. You know, we get so frustrated when we watch an episode on a TV show that, it was just your dream the entire time. The last 25 minutes or last hour you watch was just wasted because nothing happened. That's this case. That's what happens in the NFL constantly. A big play 25 yards down the field, 40 yards down the field, a great run, a great design. Wait, hold on. That play actually happened. And then always, without fail, it always seems to be just a little late, right? Like, ooh, that was kind of a late flag. And I understand that it's very easy to go down the route of it's fixed. Because when you do see that hip check, it's like, what are you doing? It's like you obviously went in the way. You can make the argument that he was just getting ready to pull the flag. But it goes back to the point, why is this a rule? It doesn't have to be a rule. There's nobody asking it to be a rule. You hear owners. I guess the subtext is, again, owners just trying to have as much power as possible. But on top of that, the coaches like it too. But I heard somebody say it. I believe it was on Greeny on national radio, where it's, should a call, a rule be enforced the same way in the first quarter as it is in the fourth quarter? And I think offhand, you're like, of course, like it's a rule. You got to call it as it is, right? Laws don't get changed, right? But when you start thinking about, well, the whole point that you initiated this rule, that you installed it, is to prevent fights. Well, we're at the end of the game. You've done all the preventative measures that you could do. We're at the end of the game. So now let's also talk a little bit about this rule. I, for one, can understand, right? I can understand in today's day and age how you just want to make sure you have a clean image, especially for the kids. Will somebody please think of the children and want to make sure that everything is on the up and up, but not just on the up and up. It looks good. It's Disney-fied. These are grown men that are throwing their bodies literally at each other like battering rams to go for pigskin. You can't pretend to be something that you're not. And I guess there's levels to this. If you go on top of somebody, step on their feet, and say you're going to smack their mama, yeah, chances are you probably deserve a flag for that. But if you do a karate kick, I mean, the only person who looks dumb is you, because either you're going to tear your ACL or it's going to look bad. Sometimes, I mean, these dudes are so athletic, it looks good. But you see how it's more of a let the spotlight be on them. But what do we talk about here all the time? Accountability. You got to be fair to the situation. There is no reason Marsh should be acting that way. Not at week 9 of the season. Not that late in that crucial of a moment in the game. You had one of the biggest plays in a phenomenal Monday Night Football ending. And you ruined it. Because you allowed yourself to be bigger than the moment. Just as much as Tony did. So I have sympathy for what was a situation that got out of hand and probably never needed to happen because the rule is dumb. But you also allowed yourself to do that. You had your celebration. You did your kick. You could have just gave some dap to Roquan, who came up to you, and followed him back to the sideline. Celebrate with your team. You made your statement. Instead, you wanted to take it just an extra step too far. And then you allowed yourself to be put into the petty crosshairs of a old ref. So there's plenty to dissect in that. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because at the end of the day, I don't like blaming refs on things. But I do want to talk about the referees for a second before we get to Justin Fields. And it's the Bears themselves and their relationships with refs. I think you have to understand that the referees, the league, all these people are just dudes. They're just guys. They're just humans. And they have their own perceptions. And they gossip amongst themselves. And they make these preconceived ideas of people and teams and philosophies and the way a game is going to go. And I think for the Bears, we've talked about it here on Sports from the Couch. We've talked about it on the Sports Cubicle. I have screamed it from the mountaintops. This is an undisciplined team. It's been an undisciplined team. So they don't get the benefit of a doubt. We've literally seen them throw punches at the opposing player because they had beef with them earlier on in the season or the season before. I'm talking to you, Wims. You know what I'm talking about. Like, we know this team has no mental fortitude when it comes to not being agitated by the opposing team. That's what they do. They give into it. And the league is just like, yeah, okay. All right then. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, they would do that. Yeah, they definitely would have unsportsmanlike conduct. Yep, they definitely will hit the quarterback just a little bit late. And speaking of hitting the quarterback a little bit late, it goes into the Justin Fields thing. This isn't just a Justin Fields problem where he doesn't get calls. You're right, Big Ben will get more calls than you. And you're right, unfortunately, it's the way the league is. Veterans, stars are going to get more calls. That's the way all sports are. And unfortunately, fortunately, depending on your position, that's all walks of life. The better you are at something, and depending on the egregiousness of what happened, you're going to get away with stuff, or you're going to get the benefit of the doubt. The defense doesn't get that because they haven't earned it in the last 3 years. And Justin Fields is a running quarterback. That's what they perceive him to be. So then the rules start changing a little bit because you got to also, if you're not, again, the nuance of the rules and, the scope of this thing. Yeah, he's a quarterback. When he runs out of the pocket, he becomes a runner. And the refs are looking at it that way. Should they be? If it were Tom Brady, would they be looking at the same way? If it was Justin Herbert, would they be looking at the same way? The litmus test is Lamar Jackson. And Lamar doesn't get a lot of those calls. It's going to be a tough thing. You can make the argument that it's an old school thought from the referees who are older, a racial thing, a systematic thing. It could be all of them. It could be none of them. But it is something. And I think if you're a Bears fan, this is the first time in a long time, if ever, you're in a position where you treasure the guy under center because you know you got something with him. You know you got something there. And it worries you every single time you make contact or the opposing player makes contact with him. And you've also been on the other end, playing against the Matt Staffords, playing against the Aaron Rodgers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Tom Brady right now, or when he was with New England, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger, go down the list. You as a Bears fan, or if you're a fan of an NFL team that has always been known for their defense, has known the feeling, have felt it when a flag comes out because of a late hit on the quarterback or a roughing the passer hit on the quarterback. Like, you know that feeling. And as a Bears fan now, you're expecting some of it. It's going to take some time because, unfortunately, it is still human error. It's still human perspective. And the Bears don't get that. They don't get that benefit of the doubt, good or bad. And I think we still need more time to really see how they are going to officiate Justin Fields games and how other quarterbacks that have that same kind of stigma amongst old heads of them just being running quarterbacks. Because we know that's not the case. I mean, let's get into it right now. 17 of 29, 291 yards, a touchdown, and at 45 rushing yards, which was nice because he did it when he had to. He is going to have to learn how to take better hits. Let's say that now before it's too late and something bad actually happens to the kid. But what has allowed Russell Wilson to survive in this league so long when it comes to taking hits out of the pocket, scrambling, is he knows how to slide. He knows how to get out of bounds. He knows how to preserve his body. Justin Fields is going to have to learn that. He will, but there were some nasty hits on Monday Night Football. And you just hope that he learns how to take them and that eventually the league will start giving him some of these calls, some of these star calls, because he is a star in the making. He's not there yet, but we saw the promise there. And on the last episode of the Sports Cubicle on Sunday nights, we talked about that in our pregame. That what are we looking for when it comes to the growth of Justin Fields? And you saw it there. He was not fazed by Monday Night Football. He was not fazed by the terrible towel. He was not fazed by that defense. The kid is ice cold. He's got an arm. And when you run an offense that he knows how to dominate in, like, I don't know, moving the pocket, rolling him out, giving him the option, and getting a little interesting with your Wildcat, yeah, he can do some things. He can pass the ball. He can throw it down deep. He can hit tight windows. Oh, and by the way, how nice was it to see Allen Robinson get 6 targets? How nice was it to see Cole Kmet be a focal point? Darnell Mooney get open. Jimmy Graham making an appearance. It's so novel of an idea to put your best players in a position to win, and that's what they did in the second half. And Justin Fields showed you that. I want to know. Let me know on Twitter at Mike M Media or at Couch Sports Talk. Even though the Bears lost, did you feel good about it because of the way Justin Fields played? At the end of the day, you want to win games. You're still in a position, if you win that game, to be in the conversation for a playoff spot. But realistically, you understand you're not really doing anything, what the point of the season was. So knowing that, after you got over the initial feeling of such a crazy ending, how did you feel after that game? Me personally, I would have loved for them to have won, but I got everything I needed to see from that. Justin Fields left that game healthy, and we saw the arrival. We saw the moment. We saw it all click together. Is this going to be will mistakes never happen again? Absolutely not. He could come back next week and throw in 3 interceptions. It's the NFL. But you know he belongs. You know you might have one here if you're a Bears fan. But now it becomes, what are you going to do to make sure you nurture this talent and that you're able to expand upon it and grow with it and then put parts around it to make it that much better? Because that's where it comes down to it now. It comes down to, is this your coaching staff? Is this your front office? What's going to be the philosophy of this team? What are you going to go all in on? Because you already did on the defense, and there's been times where they've carried you, but they have let you down repeatedly. And they, by the way, after all that, again, Marsh making the big play on defense, but then also costing them a huge penalty. And then the defense not being able to stop Ben Roethlisberger at the end of the game. All your money's on there. A lot of guys out. But the place that you've invested most of your resources in has let you down once again. And once again, you've lost, what is this, their 4th straight game? Like, you're on a losing. How many times can you have this type of downfall, especially in the NFL? And we're seeing it right now. But even with all that, I think the Justin Fields game makes you feel better about it. And I'm so interested to see what they do coming off the bye week. And that's something that it's a little bit of a bummer, because I would have loved to have seen the carryover effect from Monday to Sunday. And now we got a few weeks, and maybe they implement some stuff. Maybe they change the offense a little bit. Maybe this gives Justin Fields some time to work with the starters, because, again, he wasn't starting for some reason to start the season. But I'm a little bummed out that it's the bye week of all weeks comes now. They probably can use it to get a little healthy to try to get Khalil Mack back. But it was nice to also see the front 7 get some pressure, because they did check Najee Harris. By the way, Pittsburgh's got a lot of nice pieces A lot of nice pieces. They're an interesting team come playoff time if Ben Roethlisberger could get the ball down the field. But I want to know your thoughts. It was just a frustrating game at points, and then so much joy in it. But I think my final takeaway is the referees and the officiating of that game were horrible. It was definitely a hip check. And Marsh probably should have just done his karate kick and then walked back, but instead he got a little too close to the sun. He wanted to make it a little bit too personal with the team that just cut him, and it cost the Bears. But at the end of the day, this is a team that's undisciplined, and it's just not very good. But they have one huge bright spot. And if you could build around Roquan Smith, Khalil Herbert, David Montgomery, Darnell Mooney, and most importantly, Justin Fields, you have something. But I think I've seen enough from especially this coaching staff that their team isn't disciplined. Their team, coming off a timeout, you have a illegal formation. So not only did you have to call a timeout because your team wasn't ready, not only did you come up with that play after you caused that timeout, they get penalized for it. And that is just a microcosm of, I think, this entire tenure. But again, the North Star is Justin Fields. So let me know your thoughts. The Bears head into the bye week with a loss, but I think it could have been much worse. And the Bears know at least that they think they have one in Justin Fields. So let me know your thoughts. What were your feelings after Monday Night Football? Were you bummed out that they lost? Did you see enough from Justin Fields to feel good about it as the Chicago Bears fall to 3-6? We'll be talking about the entire NFL Week 10 slate on Sunday night, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. on WCPT 820 AM. That's the Sports Cubicle with Dan Marver, Devin Tingle, Paul Shivari, and myself. If you can't catch us live, check us out over at WCPT820.com or on SoundCloud at WCPT820.com. Thank you all so much for joining us on this edition of Sports from the Couch. You can follow me all over the universe. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media. Be interactive with the show on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. Like, rate, review, and share wherever you get your favorite podcasts at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. Check us out at Roku, roku.com/The Rewind Sports 60. Shout out to Jerry Riles. Become a producer of the network. Get our confidence picks for the NFL Week 10 over at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. And check out our swag over at Mercado Airwaves. That's teespring.com, Mercado Airwaves. Enjoy all the games. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We will see you next time here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm Mike Mercado.